You are in a conference room that suddenly feels much smaller than it did 10 minutes ago. Someone has just played a short audio clip on their phone. It sounds exactly like your chief revenue officer promising a partner a set of terms your lawyers would never approve. The voice, the cadence, even the background room noise all feel right. People turn and stare. Your executive leans back, crosses their arms, and says the line you are going to hear a lot more over the next few years. That's a deepfake. I never said that. In that moment, the question on the table is not whether deepfakes are possible. Everyone already knows they are. The real question is who gets believed when digital evidence is contested. Welcome to this Wednesday headline feature from Bare Metal Cyber magazine, developed by Bare Metal Cyber. In this episode, we are going to walk through Deepfake Governance as a first-class security and leadership concern. As synthetic media and artificial intelligence, AI, tools become widely available, the destabilizing risk is not that people fall for every fake clip they see. It is that they start to doubt what is real, especially when the truth is uncomfortable. Your job as a security or technology leader is no longer just to keep systems up and data protected. It is to defend your organization's ability to establish facts when it truly matters. Who said what, who approved what, and what actually happened in those decisive moments that get revisited months or years later. This is where the liar's dividend shows up inside the enterprise. The idea is simple. Once convincing fakes exist, liars can benefit from that ambiguity by dismissing real evidence as fabricated. In politics, you see this when a public figure waves away an awkward video as obviously fake. Inside a company, the same move can appear in much more intimate, high-stakes situations. A manager accused of making discriminatory remarks in a small meeting might shrug off a recording as synthetic. A senior salesperson might deny that they ever promised a risky deal structure that now puts the company on the hook. A product leader might disown a clip where they appear to approve a change that contributed to an outage. The more people know about deepfakes, the easier it is to introduce doubt. Notice how quickly that doubt changes the dynamics around an incident. 10 years ago, most of the debate in these situations would revolve around context and intent. Did the person really mean it that way? What happened before and after the recording? Today, the argument can move one step back. Or did someone doctor it? Human resources, HR, legal and security teams are pulled into a much more complex and technical discussion long before they ever reach questions of misconduct or accountability. If every high-stakes dispute triggers a forensic war over whether your artifacts are even real, your organization slows down and hardens in all the wrong ways. Investigations drag on. People start lawyering up earlier. Trust inside teams erodes because nobody is quite sure whether evidence will be believed. On the other hand, if you simply declare that you do not accept deepfake claims, you are ignoring a real and growing class of threats. Somewhere between those two extremes lies the path you actually need. A pre-agreed standard for when evidence is presumed trustworthy, when claims of fabrication get serious consideration, and how those claims are evaluated. To find that path, you have to look at your evidence stack with a colder eye. Most organizations behave as if digital artifacts are neutral, faithful witnesses. Meeting recordings sit in collaboration platforms. Chat histories live in archives. Email threads, ticketing systems, and log exports are all quietly treated as accurate reflections of reality. That mental model was built for a world where risks were mostly about accidental deletion, sloppy documentation, and the occasional insider editing a field. It was not built for an environment where high-quality synthetic audio, video, and screenshots can be produced on a laptop without much effort. The fragility starts in small places. Screenshots are still treated as proof in internal disputes, even though anyone with basic tools can fabricate a believable image of a chat window or a dashboard. Employees submit recordings from personal devices into investigations without a clear policy on whether they are permitted, how they are authenticated, or how long they are retained. Important decisions are hashed out in channels that can be edited or deleted, and system logs are sometimes exported to spreadsheets and PDFs in ways that break their original integrity guarantees. In many companies, there is no consistent chain of custody from the moment evidence is created to the moment it lands in front of an investigator, a regulator, or a board committee. From a leader's perspective, the right way to think about this is as a system design problem. Your evidence stack is as real a system as your identity platform or your data lake. It has components, trust boundaries, and attack surfaces. It includes meeting platforms, recording tools, logging pipelines, identity services, retention policies, and the everyday habits people use to document decisions. If you map that system today, you will almost certainly find a few strong anchors surrounded by a lot of "trust me" zones. Those are the zones where the "I did not say that" defense is going to thrive.
That is why governance has to come before gadgets. When deepfakes become part of the landscape, the instinct is to reach for tools, detectors that claim to tell you whether a video is synthetic, watermarking schemes, or third-party forensic services. Some of these will be useful, but they only help if you know what you are trying to protect and what you would count as proof. Governance is where you define that. It is where you decide which channels can carry binding commitments, how those commitments must be documented, and what standard you will use to judge authenticity if that documentation is ever challenged.
A practical starting point is to introduce tiers of communication and decisions. At the top tier sit matters like board resolutions, market-moving statements, major employment actions, and high-risk changes to critical systems. For those, you can require that the decisions be documented in controlled systems with strong identity, time, and retention guarantees. That might mean governed minutes, formal approval workflows, or specific collaboration spaces with tight access and logging. The next tier can cover things like departmental strategy decisions, significant customer commitments, or notable policy exceptions. These might allow a bit more flexibility, but still require an authoritative record in named systems. Below that, routine conversations remain informal by design. The benefit of this model is that when a dispute arises, you already know which artifacts are supposed to be authoritative and which are not. This governance work is a shared responsibility. Legal cares about evidence that will stand up in court or with regulators. HR worries about fairness, consistency, and employee trust. Security and information technology, IT, bring the threat modeling and system design lens. Together, they need to agree on standards for recordings, on whether and how employees may use personal devices, on retention periods for sensitive materials, and on how requests to alter or delete records are handled. They also need to communicate clearly to employees what is allowed. If someone records a meeting on their own phone without disclosure, will that ever be treated as evidence? If an executive insists on using consumer apps for sensitive decisions, will those decisions be treated as valid? Governance answers these questions before they explode into individual crises. Once you clarify what truly has to be trustworthy, you can design the technical guardrails that make that trust credible. The shift here is from assuming authenticity to engineering it. For your most critical evidence sources, you want artifacts anchored to identities, devices, and systems under your control. That can involve platforms that sign recordings and documents at the moment of capture, binding them to a known user, a known device, and a verifiable timestamp. It can involve making sure that logs from high-value systems stream into tamper-resistant stores with integrity checks and access controls, instead of living as files that someone can quietly edit. Beyond your own architecture, you can take advantage of emerging standards around content provenance and secure media pipelines. These approaches attach verifiable metadata to audio, video, and images, describing how they were captured and processed. Identity-aware collaboration platforms can provide attendance records, transcripts, and recording metadata that are harder to manipulate without detection. In this world, traditional deepfake detectors and forensic tools play a different role. They become escalation mechanisms that you use when something in the provenance or behavior looks wrong, not the primary gatekeepers of truth. None of these guardrails are free. Stronger authenticity guarantees almost always introduce some friction. Executives may have to use specific applications or devices for certain classes of communication. People may see more explicit recording and consent prompts. Access to sensitive artifacts may be more tightly controlled and audited. There will also be a constant tension between authenticity and privacy. Some users, and some regulators, will be understandably wary of extensive metadata and long retention periods. As a leader, your job is not to chase perfection. It is to decide where you will invest in authenticity so that when the inevitable dispute arrives, you have enough hard, verifiable evidence to make a call you are willing to stand behind.
All of this comes together in how you design for disputes. You will eventually face a situation where both sides come armed with their own proof, and at least one of them invokes the deepfake defense. When that happens, you do not want to improvise your process in real time. You want a playbook. That playbook defines how a contested recording or log set is triaged, who is brought into the conversation at each stage, when external forensic expertise is engaged, and how the findings are communicated to your board and to regulators if they are involved. It also defines what standard of proof you are aiming for. Are you trying to reach certainty beyond doubt, or a level of confidence that is simply stronger than the alternatives on the table?
When disputes reach the boardroom, the credibility of your process matters as much as the specifics of the evidence. If you can show that you have designed your evidence stack, that your authenticity investments are aligned with your risk, and that your investigation steps are consistent and repeatable, you start from a position of strength. Directors may still disagree about the right outcome in a given case, but they will not feel like they are watching a one-off scramble. Regulators and external stakeholders will respond the same way. They are increasingly aware of the deepfake problem. What they want to see is whether you treated that problem as a serious governance issue before it landed in their lap. At its core, deepfake governance is about preserving your organization's ability to say, with a straight face, "This is what really happened," and to have that statement carry weight. It is about recognizing that digital evidence is no longer self-authenticating and acting before that realization is used against you. When you zoom back out to that original conference room with the executive denying the recording on the table, the difference is stark. An unprepared organization, that moment spirals into chaos, politics, and paralysis. In a prepared one, it triggers a known process anchored in clear policies and robust artifacts. The practical shift for you as a leader is from asking whether you can trust anything anymore to asking where you have chosen to invest in trust. Which decisions are covered by strong authenticity guarantees, and which are still floating in ambiguous channels? Do your legal, HR, and security leaders share the same mental model for what counts as real? Are your boards and regulators likely to see your approach as coherent and defensible, or as a patchwork of tools and ad hoc decisions? Those are not questions you want to explore for the first time under the glare of a live incident. So as you think about deepfakes over the next year or two, try reframing the topic in your own conversations. Move it away from a narrow focus on fake celebrity clips or prank phone calls and toward a broader discussion of evidence, governance, and dispute design. Bring your cross-functional partners together and ask them calmly and concretely how they would handle the first major case where both sides say, "I did not say that," and both sides have digital artifacts to back up their claim. The work you do now, long before that case arrives, is what will determine whether your organization is still believed when it most needs to be.
Thanks for listening. For more audio courses, daily newsletters, and more, please visit baremetalcyber.com.